All right, everyone, welcome back. This is the 11th video in our video series of creating Node.js apps from beginning to end. In the last video, we began to look at how we're going to be interacting with our database and our app, and that's going to be with the Mongoose package that we imported from npm. We looked at how to set it up, configure it, and we looked at how to structure a schema to define our objects that we're going to be saving in the database. In this lesson, we're going to look at how to set up some routes for the user to send us our requests on so we can interact with this Mongoose module and use our database. I think what we're going to do in the last lesson, I talked about we'll create some routing right here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to create a new route, and we're going to call this DB routes or database routes, just to keep everything a little bit more separated. So we are going to, now that we created that, we are going to import it in here just like these other routes. So I'm going to say constant because I don't need to change it. DB router equals require and then routes slash DB routes. All right, and then I'm down here, I'm going to say app.use, and then on any database URLs, I want to use the DB router. There we go. Got that set up. Now we are ready to use this route file right here. So let's go ahead and set it up. Let's go over to, say, users, and let us grab this kind of boilerplate normal code that we use for every single routes file. And what we're doing here, again, if you don't remember, we are bringing in Express. We're using Express to create a router object, and then we're exporting that router object at the end. And in between, we are going to define routes on that router object. So, first thing we're going to do is we are going to talk about the CRUD operations that we can do. That is create, so I'll just, here you go, CRUD, okay? And that is create, read, update, and destroy. So first you want to create an object, right? Then you want to read it back and be able to see it, be able to view it, be able to do something with it. You want to be able to update it, and you also want to be able to delete it or destroy it. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at how to do this. First, like I said, we want to mess with the create route. Okay, so we are going to say router.post, because if it's going to be a creation route, we're going to expect some data from the user to be able to create our user with. So we're going to say on the create URL, so this is going to be something like localhost port 3000 / database / create, okay? And then we're going to receive a request object, and we're going to pass back that response object. This is just normal stuff we've been doing. And then we're going to do something right here with all the information we got. So you remember how the request sends us all sorts of information? Well, now that we're going to be posting some data to the request, that's going to come across in the form of JSON data. So we can go ahead and grab that from the body of the request with something like this. We're going to say let the first name variable, let that equal the request.body.firstName. All right, so the user is going to be sending us from the browser or from the app or from whatever they're using. They're going to be sending us in the request body a property called first name, and we're going to save that to a property on our side called first name. So we're going to go ahead and do this with all the properties. All right, so there we go. Now we have access to all those variables that we're going to be expecting the user to pass to us. And we're not going to go ahead and check for these. We're just going to expect the user to pass these in. We'll talk about error handling later on. So now that we have those, we are going to use Mongoose to create and save a new user with all those values that they sent to us. In order to create a new user, though, we first need to import that user schema that we created. So remember how we created this user schema and then we created an object out of it and we export it? Well, now we are going to import it right here. So I'm going to say let user equal, or we'll say, yeah, we'll just call it user. Let user equal require / models / user model, and there we go. Now we've got access to that user object. So what can we do with that? Well, there's a function that Mongoose gives us, and it's a static function on the user object, so just on the class in general, where we say create, and now we just pass in all of these right here. So for the first name property in the database, we want to save the first name. Okay, and remember how the last name was not required? Everything else is required except for the last name. Well, we are going to use a ternary operator right here. So that's going to say request.body.lastName. If that exists, then we want to store the request.body.lastName right there. If not, we want to store just a blank string right there. Okay, that way we know we're going to have access to it. Otherwise we may not, and we're going to try to store something that's not there. So correct that. I'm just going to pass all these in. All right, so now I passed all of those in, and this create function right here is going to return a promise. So as soon as this is actually created and actually finishes running, we can start doing things with it. So just like any other promise, we're going to say .then, and we're just going to have a function here that's going to end the response and send a message to the user saying user was created. Okay, so this tells us the user was created, and then we're going to catch any errors, and we're going to say a function here that ends the response with the message error creating user sewer user try again. There we go. And need to end that with a parenthesis. So notice here that we are doing two things. On success of the creation of the user, we're ending the response. However, if it doesn't succeed and we meet with failure, we also do something. But notice in either way, we have to end the response. Okay, so we can't just leave it open-ended where something's not going to happen. And if you want to be super safe, you could say here. Okay, what I tried to do here was create a catch-all at the end, just in case neither the then or the catch caught something, that this catch-all would run. But this does not work because in Node, it's going to run this little catch-all I wrote before the promise resolves, which is not what I want, because then my res.end user was created and my res.end error creating user try again will never get run because the response is going to be ended by that catch-all I tried to add. So later on, I'm going to realize this and take these all out, but just know that these are not supposed to be here, so go ahead and don't create any of these as I create these catch-alls. Just completely ignore that. Okay, back to the video. Okay, so that's the creation route. Let's go ahead and create the read route. So the read, and then we are, I call that just route. Okay, so we're going to say router.get. So this is just a get request. This was a post request because we're expecting information. We're going to use those posted request properties to create our user, and down here we just want to get something from the server and return it to the user. So we're going to say .get on, we're going to say list users. So this is going to be localhost port 3000 /database /list users. And again, just request response. And then our function here, we're going to say user.find. And remember, or what user.find does is it will find all the users with a certain criteria. So we could pass in find all the users with a first name of Bob. Okay, but we just want to find all the users no matter what the criteria is, so we just leave that empty, and that's what that'll do. And then remember, exec returns a promise, so then we can do things like .then, and if it succeeds, it's going to return us the user, so I'm just going to say all users, because that's what's going to be returned if it succeeds. And then what we want to do with all those users is we want to respond with all the JSON data of those users. So remember, when we created this object in our model, this is basically a JSON object right here. It's a JavaScript object pretty much, and so it'll be very easy for our app to go ahead and return and respond with the JSON data of all those users. So that's what we're going to do if it succeeds. If it fails, we're going to catch an error, and we are going to say response.end and then just error fetching all the users, and then we will just add on the error right there. So it's important to note right here that response.json, it also ends the response. It finalizes and sends off the response. However, it does so with some JSON data. So don't think you have to do something like response.end as well. Response.json does end the response cycle. Again, to be super safe, we could just copy this here, paste it in, and something weird happened fetching the users. Okay. Now that's the create and the read route. So let's go ahead and define the update route. And if you're thinking, man, this is a lot of code, I haven't seen it work yet, don't worry, we're going to go ahead and show you how to use that. And you're actually going to have to download this tool right here called Postman. Excellent tool, great to use. I'm going to show you how to use that to be able to show you how all these are working. And we're going to go over it again. So this is the update post, or the editing post. So this is going to be just router.put. And if you don't know, put is the request method for updating data. It's like post, it's just for updating instead of creating. So this is going to be on the route edit user. And then again, request, response. And then we're going to say, we're going to find a user, first of all. So we're going to expect, remember we created that static function, find user by email. We're going to say user.find user by email. We did create that, didn't we? Find user by email, yep. And then we just have to pass in an email. So we're going to say the request.body.email. And so if that succeeds, we're just going to be able, it's going to give us that user. So we're going to get that, and we are going to say that the user on our browser or on a front end wants to change the username. So we're going to be able to expect a username from the request.body. So we're going to say this user that we got, the username of that user now is going to be changed to whatever was passed in to our request.body. And then we're going to say user.save, and that's going to save that updated information to the database. And so this is what we want to happen if we successfully find the user. If we don't, we want to catch the error that comes up. And actually, we're going to be doing all the same stuff that we did right here. Just change a few words. So we are just going to paste that in there. So we're going to catch that error, and we're going to say there's an error fetching the user, and then we're going to have a catch. Now, finally, we want to have that deletion route. So destroy route. We'll say router.delete, and this is going to be on the route of remove user, and just pass in a request and response again. And then Mongoose comes with a function, user.remove, and it's going to expect some way to find the user. So we're going to say we're going to be passing in the username with request.body.user username. And so once it finds this, it's going to go ahead and remove it, and then it's going to return us that promise. Once we do .exec, and then once we have that promise, we can say .then. What we want to do is response.end with a message, user successfully deleted. And then if there is an error doing so, again, we want to add that catch and maybe a catch-all at the end just to be super safe. Error deleting. I guess we should update this here too. Updating, and then also here deleting the user. Okay, so there we have it. We have the creation of our user, the ability to fetch that user, the ability to update that user, and the ability to destroy or delete that user. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use all these in Postman to be able to make sure they are all working. So if you don't have Postman, just go ahead and open up your browser and go to Postman. I think maybe it's Get Postman. Getpostman.com. Go ahead and just go to download the app and go ahead and choose your platform, download it. Pretty easy install. Once you have it, you're just going to open it up. And just like our browser where we put in the URL, and sorry I'm moving so quick here. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will answer them. I want to get through all this, and there's a lot to get through. So I'm going to show you how to check that all those routes we set up are working. So just like in the browser, we're going to enter the URL. So it's going to be HTTP localhost. It's almost those. So localhost on 3000/database/create. Remember, that was the creation, and it was a post route. So on this left side here, you can select what type of route you're passing in. So delete, we use delete. There's all sorts of ones, but we use delete, put, post, and get. So first thing we're going to do is post. And now what you need to do is you need to go over to the body tab right here. You need to say that we're going to be passing in, hold on, we're going to go to our app. And you see right here where we told our app to use URL encoded information. This is telling our body or our app how to parse the request body. So when we pass a request in, we need to pass it in with URL encoded body right there. So right here, you'll see it's going to allow us to pass in JSON data, and you could go here and do it yourself manually, but they create this nice little form for us where we can pass in things like username, so that's what it's going to be called, and then the value, I'm just going to say my username would be PJ Peach, and then remember we also had, what do we have? We had first name, and that for me would be Daniel, and then we had a last name, and so Peach, and then we had an email, and then so I'm going to say my fake email because I don't want all y'all emailing me at gmail.com. And then we also had a password, and I'm just going to say pass1234, and that was it. I believe that was it. That's everything we had. So once we have all of these and we have values for all of them, we can go ahead and hit send, and we didn't get a response, and that's because we couldn't connect to the server because it is not running. So npm run dev start, and that's going to run. And now that that's running, we can go ahead and send again, and we are going to go to okay, I know where that is. We are getting this error right here. User.create is not a function. The reason for that is because when we created our model, I forgot this keyword right here, new. You can't just create something without the new keyword. That's not how constructors work at all. So that's my error right there. And now that we have that, it should be fixed. Let's go ahead and save that. And now when we send this, something weird happened creating the user. So it's a good thing we put that catch-all in place. All right, something weird happened creating the user. Let's take a look at why this happened. So one thing you have to realize with Node is that it is asynchronous. And so that means things run right after another. So this runs and this runs and this runs, and it just all runs right after another. It doesn't wait. That's why we have things like promises. And this is why I don't normally do something like this, which is a catch-all, because in an asynchronous environment, what happened was it ran through all this, it hit this, so it ran this, but while that was running, it went on and ran this bit of code right here and ran it and ended our response prematurely before this got a chance to complete and run one of these. So since we know these are going to execute, we don't need a catch-all down here. Let's go ahead and delete all of those. Should have even put those in there. That's why I don't normally put them in there. So I just wasn't thinking today. Wasn't thinking. All right, so save that. Go ahead. Go over, send, and there we go. User was created. And now if we go to Mongo Compass right here, and we are in the Mongoose app database, we go to the users collection, we'll see that I just created an object right here. So now we see that we can create, and we got this message right here. Now, what type of errors would we run into where we'd get this message? Well, remember in our models where we said it was required, or the username and email had to be unique? Well, what if I tried to send that same exact thing again with the same email and username when they have to be unique? Well, it said error creating user, try again. And if we go to MongoDB and refresh that, or Mongo Compass and refresh it, you'll notice there's only one object created. So that is how our user model is constricting what gets saved to our database with things like this unique has to be true property or option on our property right here. So let's go ahead and run through the other routes that we created. So the put route, let's just pass in the email. This is going to be, or first let's just do the get route. So that is what, list users, and send that. And now we got the JSON data back of all of our users, which right now is just one. And you see this ID and V right here. You don't need to worry about this at all. And what our ID is, this is just going to be a unique ID for every object that's created in MongoDB. It just MongoDB creates that for us. So that is all our users on the get route. Now we also had an update route, which was on the put route, and we called that, I believe, edit user. Edit users or edit user. Let's find out. Edit user, and we are expecting an email to be able to find it, and we're expecting a username to change the username. So let's go to body, and with this nice little form they have here for us, we can just deselect all the other things that we don't need, and then go ahead and send that. And it gets stuck loading here, and I think I know why. Yep, right here, when we saved our object right here, we didn't do anything. So let's, after this all saves and this gets done, we're going to add another .then. So you can just chain your .thens if you didn't know that, and just create another function here, and say response.end user was updated. Save that, and see, I couldn't get a response. It took too long, so we're just going to send that again, and user was updated. We successfully get our response back. So great. And if we go to our compass, or actually, I guess let's go ahead and redo that with a new username. So instead of DJ Peach, let's just say dpeach. And let's go ahead and send that. And user was updated. And if we go here, refresh, we'll see that that changed from DJ Peach to dpeach right there. So that successfully works. Now the last thing is the destroy route. So let's go ahead and go, and that is on the delete route, and it was remove user, I believe. and we just need to pass in the username of the user that we want to delete. So let's go ahead and send that. And user successfully deleted. We go to the compass, we update it, and that user is gone. So congratulations, you have successfully created a fully functioning CRUD operation app that allows you to create, update, read, and destroy users on your routes, and you're using your model to control what gets saved and the different errors that come back. So that's a lot of information in these 2 lessons. If you need to, take a moment, go ahead and check out the Mongoose docs. They have some pretty good docs here that you can read about the different things they do. There's a lot that they do. I actually prefer, if you go to npm mongoose and just search that, and the npm package, the documentation here is a little simpler, a little more basic. It's not everything that it can do, but it's a little bit more basic and will help you out right here. So if you want to be able to understand this better, walk through the code that we've done together. And again, I'll have the source code in the description. So if you made any mistakes, you can check out what my source code looks like and fix it there. So in the next lesson, we are going to begin creating a real application using everything we've learned, and it's going to be a miniature blog in which you're going to be able to post little miniature blog posts that are going to just be little status updates, if you will, and it's going to just be able to use everything that we've learned so far to create a front-end browser application that accesses our Node.js app and our Mongoose database, and it's going to be great. I'm excited to show you how to do that, and I will see you there in the next lesson.